Joseph lived in Canaan with his father Jacob, his mother Rachel, his father's 2 other wives, and his 11 brothers. When Joseph was 17 years old, a series of wonderful and terrible things happened to him, setting into motion events that would change history. Joseph often tended his father's flocks with his brothers, and one day Joseph told his father about some bad things his brothers had done while out in the fields with the sheep. Everyone in the family thought that Joseph was Jacob's favorite son, and it made his brothers dislike him. When Jacob gave Joseph a beautiful coat of many colors, it proved their suspicions were true, and it made his brothers hate Joseph. One night, Joseph had a dream, and he told his brothers about it. Joseph said, "We were out in the field tying up bundles of grain. Suddenly, my bundle stood up, and your bundles all gathered around and bowed low to mine." His brothers responded, "So you think you will be our king, do you? Do you actually think you will reign over us?" And they hated him even more because of his dreams and the way he talked about them. A few nights later, Joseph had another dream, and this time he told his father as well as his brothers about it. "Listen, I have had another dream," he said. "The sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed low before me." Jacob scolded him. "What kind of dream is that?" he asked. "Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow to the ground before you?" While Joseph's dream made his brothers jealous, his father wondered what the dreams meant. Soon after this, Joseph's brothers took their father's flocks to Shechem to graze. When they had been gone for some time, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers and the flocks. Joseph was to come right home and give his father a report. When Joseph arrived in Shechem, a man from the area noticed him wandering around the countryside and told him that his brothers had moved on to Dothan. So Joseph followed his brothers to Dothan and found them there. When Joseph's brothers saw him coming, they recognized him in the distance. "Well, here comes the dreamer," they said. "Let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns. We can tell our father a wild animal has eaten him. Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams." But when Reuben, the oldest brother, heard of their scheme, he came up with a different plan. "Why should we shed any blood? Let's just throw him into this empty cistern here. Then he'll die without having to lay a hand on him." Reuben was secretly planning to come back to rescue Joseph and return him to their father. The brothers agreed to Reuben's plan, and when Joseph arrived, his brothers ripped off the beautiful coat he was wearing and threw him into the empty cistern. Pleased with what they had done, the brothers sat down to eat. Soon, they saw a group of Ishmaelite traders and camels coming toward them. Judah said to his brothers, "What will we gain by killing our brother and covering up the crime? Instead of hurting him, let's sell him to those Ishmaelite traders." His brothers agreed that making money off their brother was better than killing him, so when the Ishmaelites came by, Joseph's brothers pulled him out of the cistern and sold him for 20 pieces of silver. The traders loaded him up and continued their journey to Egypt. Sometime later, Reuben, who had stayed out with the flocks when his brothers decided to sell Joseph, went back to the cistern to save him. When he arrived, he found that Joseph was gone. He rushed to his brothers to tell them what happened. Instead of telling him what they had done, they came up with a plan to cover up everything. They slaughtered a goat, tore up Joseph's beautiful coat, and dipped the shredded coat into the blood. When they returned home, they showed their father the blood-stained coat. They said, "We found this. Do you think it's Joseph's?" Jacob looked at the coat and knew that it was his son's. He was so overcome with sadness at the loss of his favorite son that no one in the family could comfort him. Meanwhile, the Ishmaelite traders had arrived in Egypt, where they sold Joseph to Potiphar, the captain of the guard of Pharaoh's army.